joining. And to all of our presenters and guests this evening who have joined us in person. So thank you all for coming. If you haven't had an opportunity, please feel free to sneak out, grab a glass of wine or a drink and some snacks while everyone's speaking. I want you to relax, enjoy yourself, participate. By way of introduction, I'm Danielle McMahon. I am the CHRO of Wiley. Super excited to be hosting this event today. Just a little quick story, and then I want to turn it over because I know we are already late on time. I was fortunate enough today to start my day at another conference. I get to bookend my day with two great bodies of people and a lot of great thought leadership. So it's been a very exciting and exhausting day. But I had the privilege of hearing from a great female leader, Ursula Burns, for those of you who don't know her. Yeah, it was so cool. She's such an inspiration. If you haven't seen her, if you haven't had the privilege that I did this morning, I recommend you look her up on YouTube. Her personal story is just fantastic. But how she ended the conference, I think is a great way for us to begin our evening. And she talked about optimism and hope. And the whole conference this morning was a group of 100 of my peers across industries talking about AI and society today. And she closed out the conference and talked about, with everything that's going on, we need to, in this country, regardless of your political position, we all need to be coming together to bring back democracy to this country. And she said, too many of us are thinking about the they that will solve the problems. And she said, who are these theys? Because it's about us. And what's great about this forum this evening is it brings everyone together to start to think about how we can get involved in being part of the they. So I don't want to take up too much more time. I do have a lot of comments. Sorry, team, wherever they are. But here are the things that I want you to be thinking about as you participate in this evening. I want you to think about what your sphere of influence is, wherever you're coming from. Whether you work in a corporation or you work locally within your community. I want you to think about how can you get involved? What is the one thing or nugget that you're going to take away from today that you could action? Rising Voices, as you all know, is hosted by All In Together. I'm not only the CHRO of Wiley, but a very proud board member of All In Together. I think I have been on the board for how long now? At least 7, is it 7 years? That explains okay, 7 years, a long time. I was going to say it explains my grades, but that wouldn't have been a very nice thing to say. I know, because it's not true. That's what my children did to me. That's a whole nother conversation. That'll be tomorrow's big meeting. But so I want you to make sure that you are all participating in the conversation, that you're challenging each other, your perspectives. That's what we're here for today, getting engaged. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lauren, who's going to introduce Lauren. If you don't know Lauren, she is the CEO and co-founder of All In Together. I'm going to have her introduce All In Together as well as our guest speakers today. So welcome to Wiley. I hope you enjoy the evening.
Good evening, everyone. Hello. I hope you had drinks and snacks and keep eating and drinking and enjoying the evening. I'm Lauren Leader. I'm the co-founder and CEO of All In Together, and we are a nonpartisan women, civic, and political education organization, and we just celebrated last year our 10th anniversary. We have spent the last more than a decade now training women across America on the tools of civic leadership. And what is really magical about the lessons we've learned over these many years is that leading in your community, leading at work, leading in your family, leading in every sphere, it has a lot, they all have a lot in common with each other. In other words, it's one skill set, the ability to speak up, to amplify your voice, to believe in yourself and to support others. That's really what we're here to do. And Rising Voices is now, this is our 3rd year doing Rising Voices. We are so grateful to Wiley, especially to Danielle and Alessandra. Where's Alessandra? Who made all of this. Please clap for Alessandra. She came to last year. We had 5 years of an amazing program called Black Women Lead that Wiley also sponsored, that Alessandra came to. She was so inspired that she stepped up to help make this program today happen. And we're very, very grateful and so thrilled to have all of you. So I am so excited to introduce how many people here live in New Jersey? Oh, amazing. Great. We nailed it. Nailed it. So nobody crossed the river for us today? Okay, fine. We didn't think they would because that's just how New Yorkers are. I did, by the way. I did. I crossed the river. My team crossed rivers. But you are so lucky to have Tanisha Way as your lieutenant governor. Now, what's really interesting is she is only the third lieutenant governor in the history of the state of New Jersey because, as I found out from the Google a couple hours ago, because I will admit, as much as I know about politics, I didn't know this, that there wasn't a lieutenant governor until about 2006 when the voters of New Jersey decided that it was important to have a succession plan when your previous governor left to go work in a presidential administration. So it's a really interesting thing that she's just the third, but she is paving the way for a whole generation of leaders who will continue to follow her. And her other role is as the Secretary of State for New Jersey, which we're going to talk to her a lot about. It is fascinating. Please join me. We are so lucky to have your Lieutenant Governor, Lieutenant Governor Way.
I know.
It, and you know, the lieutenant governor really got the bipartisanship memo by wearing purple today. That is, our colors are in fact like orange and purple. We do a lot of purple because it's we bring everyone together. So, Lieutenant Governor, we are so grateful to have you. Thank you for carving time. You were just telling me you had a fascinating day talking about the history of New Jersey with Ken Burns as we come to the 250th anniversary of the founding of this country. But why don't you tell us, first of all, I think most Americans, how many people think they know what a lieutenant governor's job is? Oh, well, all right. But Marilyn, you're the A student. You don't count. You work in politics.
Yeah, Maryland doesn't matter.
No,
We love
she
you
so
though.
matters. That's our friend Marilyn, but she is like the queen of New Jersey politics, so she knows. But yeah, most of us don't actually
Oh, you're
know.
my love, Maryland.
No, a lot of us don't really know what our leaders' jobs are, and that is what we're going to talk about. So, can you help folks understand both your two jobs, your role as lieutenant governor, but then also secretary of state, which is such an important and critical role that is completely non-political, right? It's really about the enforcement of our election laws in the state. But fill everyone in. What should they know about your job and what you do?
Okay, well, again, thank you, Lauren, for having me for your third annual All Rise Up Women's Conference. I can say it's a true pleasure being with each and every one of you. Good things happen in threes because I'm the third Lieutenant Governor and I'm the 34th Secretary of State, as they would say. And of course, Wiley, thank you for hosting us this evening. Now, in addition to my being Secretary of State and Lieutenant Governor, I also am a mom of four girls. I have a husband and I have a 17-year-old dog. So there's lots that goes on in the Way household. I just want to put it out there, especially with my daughters, because they think I only graduated from kindergarten, y'all. So I'm here, I'm breathing. Marilyn Davis matters, and we're all good. We're going to have a good conversation. So, yes, I will start with Lieutenant Governor. Both positions are true blessings, right? As Lieutenant Governor, you are second in command. You had mentioned, Lauren, learning that New Jersey just recently propped up the position, but there are other states such as Oregon, Arizona, who don't have a lieutenant governor as the second in command. So actually, their secretaries of state become the seconds in command. And depending on who your governor is, he or she decides your role and responsibility. Now, in New Jersey, in addition to that, by constitution is set up that the lieutenant governor has to oversee a department or an agency. So in 2023, Marilyn knows this and many others know this. We lost a phenomenal mentor to we all females, especially Black and Brown electeds and appointed, Sheila Oliver. we lost her. So, with that being said, in the Constitution, the governor had to appoint a new lieutenant governor. And, hopefully he saw my work out there. But I think, too, what also made the decision, to circle to a Tahisha Way is that I already oversaw an agency, meaning the Department of State. I've been in his administration since the inception 2018 as Secretary of State. So whenever he is not available to execute his responsibilities and duties, I become acting governor. I'll be acting governor later on this evening for a good stretch because he'll be on an economic mission in India for about, a week or so. So I've held it down for, various times throughout this tenure. Nothing has occurred, right? My New Jerseyans under my watch. We females, we can do it all. Remember, I got this 17-year-old dog, husband, 4 kids. But seriously, sitting down with him and with the team, they wanted to gauge really what were my interests outside of being secretary. And for me, even though I keep my private life and my professional life separate and apart, I just know that one of the blessings and honors of being a public servant is seeing your experiences, which have been challenges, seeing others' experiences too, which have been challenges, and trying to make that life a little better to the best of your ability. So for me, I grew up in the Bronx, New York.
You never can say the Bronx without the other Bronx ladies having to
Exactly.
clap. Yeah.
I grew up in the Bronx, New Jersey. I'm a New Jersey girl though, but I grew up in the Bronx. And, I remember my father, he was a bus driver. My mother was an Underground Railroad clerk. And for them, she worked nights, he worked during the days, but they could not afford childcare. So whenever there was the moments in which I or my older brother would have to be left at the house, guess what? I was riding the bus with my dad. So I take that seriously to heart in terms of universal pre-K and the investment in childcare so that we all can execute our jobs well, feel as though, you know what, my child, my young child, because it's very important at such a young age, is getting the best start in life. So that was one and has been one of my major focuses in tandem with the Gov and the administration. Two, I mentioned that I have the kids. Well, three of them have gone through college already. And I would witness the pressures, if you will, especially after COVID, that they would experience as college students. So for me, I wanted to ensure that our college students are set up for overall academic success, and that component includes mental wellness. So for me, I also know that students can feel as if it's a stigma if their friends and others on campus are to learn what is they're going through. So what we did was I signed legislation, um, making certain that there would be training, right? Not only with educators, but RAs, et cetera, but also partnering with other organizations nationally, creating the 24/7 virtual services that they could actually tap into. And this goes on into next year so that they can have that privacy, if you will. And then, I think that affordability, we all have heard it, right? Not just in the great state of New Jersey, but this is our lives. And the one thing that I understand, and I know ladies, you feel the same way too, and the gentlemen in the audience, that housing is really a foundation of stability, right, for us all. And so I have focused on housing affordability. I just spoke at one of the housing conferences yesterday in Atlantic City. And then, I signed legislation ensuring that none of the appraisals, right, that go on would be discriminatory. So that's the side of Lieutenant Governor. I hope I'm not boring you, am I? All right.
Did
So-
you all know that the lieutenant governor can do those things? No, we didn't know that.
okay.
Most people don't. Right. So briefly though, so Secretary of State, first of all, most important news that you can use. Who here knows the date of the upcoming election and what we are voting for in New Jersey? Who's got the date?
Besides
Extra
Maryland.
dessert and a glass of wine for whoever can throw. And that's not Marilyn who does this for a living. Who knows the date of the upcoming election? It's a Tuesday, November 4th. Yeah, extra glass of wine. What's your name? What's your name? And okay, so Anna gets an extra glass of wine. Let's make sure she gets it. No, but you know what? If you have not, put it in your telephone. Take out your phone and write down November 4th. It is a very important election in this state. So we have the gubernatorial election, which if y'all have televisions or YouTube, you probably have seen some ads for, but there are also other elections. What else is on the ballot in November? We have your whole state legislature, right?
Well, not the entire state
Oh, okay, my
assembly,
bad.
but the important thing about New Jersey is that we have statewide elections every single year,
Oh, wow.
un- unlike other states. So that's important. And Lauren, if I may,
Please.
as Secretary of State, I oversee our elections, right? And I think that it was mentioned that democracy, and that's is truly something that we need to focus upon nowadays, given, and I'm not here to be political because as an appointed Secretary of State, you have to remain nonpartisan. But just thinking about my day with Ken Burns, his team, we're all discussing the 250th, right? The anniversary of how our democracy was born with principles of equity, justice, self determination, and virtue. And that is why, fast forward to now, we really need to sharpen, right, our understanding of creating this healthier democracy. And even with fire district races, I say to my electorate, vote. I understand the more well known positions, such as a governor, such as president, but you think about your local elected officials, school board races. There are times where, folk want to have issues or take issues with property taxes. Well, guess what? A good portion of your property tax is your school bill. So why are you not trying to focus upon your boards of education? And I'm not saying to come at them like that. Have conversations, right? To really be informed and educated. And that's what my team and I have truly tried to do at the Department of State. I say to people, it's nice that you vote, but I want you to be an educated voter. And for us, it's an education on the election process because I can't get into, oh, become educated in this candidate. I hope folk do that. But nonetheless, you have to understand when is voter registration deadline. You need to understand you need to update your voter registration because sometimes people move from one county to the next. And if you don't do it in a specific time, you'll show up at the polls and then someone will say, the poll worker, oh, you cannot vote. You have to vote provisionally. And that's okay to vote provisionally because that's just another way of verifying whether or not you are eligible to vote. So while you would definitely want to go into a voting booth, if someone says, well, you can only vote provisionally, please don't take offense to that. And getting back to our democracy, and the kids were there. And this is why it's so important. The founders, they were young. So it's now our kids' time to really be civically engaged so that we can have this common ground, if you will, in all that we do. We know that, what was it, in 2020, we celebrated the centennial of the 19th Amendment, right? Women gaining the right to vote, which is significant and important. And even like the American Revolution programming that we have going on, what we're doing is telling the complete story because, yeah, there was the 19th Amendment, but not everyone still was able
That's right.
to vote.
Right. It was another 50 years till the Civil Rights Act before Black women could vote. So, absolutely. So, all right. Are we learning something here that we didn't know? Right. So, I love that you bring up local politics because that's my background too. And it's a huge part of what we do at All In Together. I actually ran for and served in local elected office in my town in Westchester for 4 years. It was the hardest. Also, most of my colleague is laughing because she lives in the town. She knows how hard it was. It was not easy, but it was also ultimately like the most rewarding thing I ever did. And I learned a lot about how much of our lives gets decided, whether it's the speed bumps and the stop signs and, the like basics of construction and businesses in your town. It's one thing we really encourage everybody to do. If you've never been to a local town board meeting or a county commission meeting, go find out and go. Just go once. You'll find out so much about what's going on in your town that you didn't know. But I want to just, before we wrap, because I know your time is limited, tell us one thing I'm always amazed by whenever I have the blessing of getting to meet lots of women elected officials. It's such a joy. In fact, we were introduced by another amazing lieutenant governor, the lieutenant governor of the state of Illinois, who is also now running for Senate in that state. But one of the things I love about so many women electeds is this commitment to service. And I think in this day and age, it's easy to see politics in a very cynical light, but I think when you hear from elected women especially, you really hear that commitment to service. So for you, just tell us a minute about what keeps you motivated to work in service, because that is clearly how you see your job. And why is that so motivating to you to do service, to be in public service? That is what the job is.
Exactly. Well, before I get to that, because you
Oh,
mentioned Westchester,
yes.
right? I worked in Westchester. We
Oh,
have something in
oh
common
my gosh.
in high school,
Oh my gosh.
Cross County Mall.
Oh
Yes,
yeah.
I did. Yes,
Drive
I
by it
did.
every day.
Baskin Robbins, though, y'all.
Yes.
Baskin
One of
Robbins.
31 flavors.
Exactly. But also, another point is true. Local government, and I kid you not, everyone, right? I think that when I'm in the supermarkets, still today, I was a county commissioner. Maryland knows this. And I am still, folk come up to me and they're not asking me about lieutenant governor responsibilities. I kid you not, a month and a half ago, I'm at the eggs, right, getting ready to just give on my savings account to, as I get like a dozen of those things. And someone taps me on the shoulder and I'm like, and this lady, right, a nice lady, she was like, oh, you're the county commissioner, right? Still, right? And I'm like, no.
10
She's
years ago.
like, exactly, exactly. But she said, oh, well, I have like a pothole by my neighborhood, and I just want to see if I can get this repaired. I'm looking at her like,
It is
but I
amazing
helped.
the
But
passion for potholes.
they, I'm between that and the trash.
Yeah.
It was always the trash, the potholes. But
Speeding, also speeding in
I
school zone.
referred her. I referred her along. But getting back to your point, it is. They do care. But you know what? I truly feel blessed because, I wasn't that 5, 6 year old, 7 year old who said, I'm going to be president when I was young, even though I love the book Grace for President. I never thought about that. My turning point with public service, y'all, was when I was 19 and I suffered a massive brain hemorrhage. And so for me, when you wake up from a semi coma and you see, especially your father with tears in his eyes, you say to yourself, okay, I know I'm gone. I just know I'm gone. and you see your mom and you see strangers surrounding you, the medics. And after 3 successful surgeries, they put me back together, as I always say, and made me whole. So for me, I always thought, okay, I'm an English major. I love to creatively write, but I am not a someone who's into math or science. So what can I possibly do to affect change and help others' lives and make them whole? And that's when I went to law school. Fast forward, here I am. But thank you. And I tell you, it's just a blessing to be able to just sit here across from you and also just to connect with the audience because we truly need good people to do the public work. And one of my portfolios at the Department of State, I know that everyone hears about elections, but I always consider Department of State one of the smallest departments, but one of the mightiest. And I tell you why. I oversee the arts, the culture. I have a business action center, travel and tourism. And there's a small little portfolio that is just so awe inspiring to me, y'all, every single day. And I hope you hear me when I mention this one. It's called the Governor's Office on Volunteerism. For us to have garnered about 1.1 million New Jerseyans who step up each and every day and volunteer in their communities, either through, let's say, AmeriCorps, then we have grandparents as parents. We have those who are doing the economic and environmental justice thing. And just having witnessed their work during 2020, even though we were all virtually, ensuring that our students were actually assisted in their learning losses. You know, that's a beautiful thing. And so, what I just ask of each and every one of you, I don't think that you have to be the lieutenant governor, you have to have a position in government to be that public servant. I saw my parents that way. They put their great pride into their navy blue uniforms, matching uniforms, different jobs. But I know that there are individuals such as yourself, you can connect with my team to learn more about volunteerism. You can look at different other aspects of New Jersey government, your local government. Get to know your community. Our kids need us, and they appreciate when we actually are in the fold.
And you know, it's a perfect way to bring us to the close because that is the mission of All In Together is we really want everyone to see themselves no matter how much time you have or don't have. I mean, we are all so busy, but we always say, you know, even an hour of your time can make a difference, right? Even the smallest things, you know, showing up for others in our community, speaking up on behalf of others, you know, the experience that the LG shared about being inspired to help others because of her own challenges. I think that's so often what we see brings women to the table in terms of their own commitments to service and to serving others. It's just wanting others to not experience the challenges we've experienced or to just make even the small changes. And they do make a big difference if we all do it together. And with that, I just so much more we could talk about. I like barely scratched the
Can
surface,
I
but
just do say one more thing
please,
because
I
this
just
is
I
important?
thought your staff was
I
going to yell at
promise.
me.
I promise, like I used to do as a
I'm going
kid.
to
I
get the
promise.
hook from your staff, but
I
yeah,
I promise. November 4th is the election. 3 ways to vote in the great state of New
perfect.
Jersey. Vote by mail, no excuse, just as long as you're an eligible voter. Of course, in person, November the 4th. Then we have in person early voting. I believe that's October the 25th through November the 2nd. I am done.
And all of that can be found on the Secretary of State's website. Is that correct?
Vote.nj.gov.
Vote.nj.gov. Everyone's going to write it down. Everyone's putting this in their calendar, right? November 4th. I joke, but it's not, it's serious because it's very easy to forget. Early vote or show up on the 4th. Very, very important. We need you. This is a critical election for the state of New Jersey, as they all are, and your voice matters. So, with that, I just want to say a huge thank you to the Lieutenant Governor for her extraordinary public service and to being with us today. Thank you
Thank you.
so much. me, can I escort you off so we just please thank the LG for us. She can't stay, but we are grateful for you. So thank you. Okay, thank you. So with that, I would like to invite up my colleague, Priya Alangavan. Oh, we're breaking for dinner. Oh my God, that's the best news.
Feel free to keep eating. I'm not going to stop anybody. I'm Priya Langovan. I'm All In Together's Director of Programs and Research, and I'm going to be moderating our next panel, which is on finding a culture of belonging and impact at work. And I probably should have stood up there and did this. I'm going to call up our two panelists. So Nancy Hall is the Senior Vice President of End User Computing at Fiserv, where she manages Um, and sorry, I'm going to let them introduce themselves once they get on stage. And then Lacey McBurney is the corporate VP of talent and culture at Wiley. So we're going to start this out with kind of an intro question. So if you can, try to explain what you do in 1 minute as part of your introduction. And if you can also share one thing what's your favorite thing about your job with the audience?
Great. So hi everyone, I'm Lacey McBurney. I lead talent and culture here at Wiley. I would say my personal purpose is just to make work a better part of people's lives. And at Wiley, I think my big focus is bringing in the right people, keeping them here and engaged in an environment that helps them be their best, and then providing the right programs for them to learn and grow. And in terms of my favorite part, I really love those aha moments that you have with a leader or a team that's just figuring out how to step into their leadership, how to step into their potential. That's like really what brings me here and keeps me going. It's great to see people thrive.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Nancy Hall. I work for Fiserv. My role is end user computing. It's really, in a nutshell, tech for every employee. So anything that you touch on your day-to-day basis is my responsibility, from laptop through video conferencing, email, and it's for a global company. So I support over 50,000. Favorite things about my job, mainly it's never boring, ever. People are fascinating. Essentially, I'm customer service to a large degree, and people never disappoint. Right. So, and I love how people think. It's the diversity of thought, and they come to me with problems. I'm like, I didn't know that was a thing. Okay, I love that. So it's never boring. I really love what I do.
I also forgot, so maybe can we put the program QR code back on the screen? I did forget to mention there, if you scan the QR code up on that screen, it will also give you more information about our panelists. Because we will have a Q&A session at the end of the panel. So if you want to learn more about them, think about what questions you might like to ask, feel free to check that out. So what does make you feel a sense of belonging and impact at work? And what are there specific events that happen or specific instances that you can think of that make you feel that way?
Yeah, so I think for me, what really creates belonging personally is two things: kind of shared experiences at work. I think when you are on that project and you're kind of in the thick of it with someone or some team, and you're able to share your ideas or your perspectives and feel that they're valued, I think that really creates belonging, because you're in it together, and then you are getting it over the finish line, and kind of like almost as a sports team, like you're winning together, and that just feels really great. But on more of a personal side, I think in the moments when I've been able to bring a little bit of who I am outside of work into the workplace. Recently, for example, I have a 13-month-old, and I've been sharing with my team or colleagues a little bit about how amazing and beautiful that is, and how challenging working motherhood is, and how I'm still figuring that out. And people have really showed up for me and given advice and support, and that just really makes me feel that I belong. And I think Wiley is a place that does that. They really celebrate who you are beyond your work accomplishments, but personal milestones are just as important.
Yeah, and mine's very similar. Value, feeling belonging, bringing value, knowing that I bring value actually makes me feel very good about what I do. Me, it's the relationships, the friendships, the mentorships, the people that I've met along the way, and that I work with on a day to day. I have to have that authenticity of relationship in order to really grow with the organization and be able to deliver, which goes with the value, bringing value to the organization. You don't do that if this doesn't work.
That's really great. And I'm thinking about this even being kind of still early in my career as well, that the workplace has changed a lot, right, in the last handful of years. I think especially, from post COVID to now. And so what advice do you have for younger employees who are looking to make connections at work? Right? There's all these programs, we throw acronyms around a lot, ERGs, working groups, mentorship. How do people seek out those programs? How do they take advantage of them? And what's the best advice you can give for people who are looking to make connections?
That's a great question. So I think all these programs are there. So a few things. When I get approached by people, they ask me about the ERGs. They're wonderful programs. I say join them all, right? Because you meet a great many people across all the ERGs. It's a great way to connect with people on the level. And the reality of it is you're going to eventually meet somebody that you connect with, that maybe you develop a friendship or even a mentorship or some type of professional coaching, environment. So, what I like to tell people is like, talk to everybody. ERGs are a great way. Another way that I like to coach, especially people early in their career who are new to a company, make appointments with maybe some of the senior leaders or leaders in your company, and just talk to them. Ask them about what they do. Ask them about what their department does. Ask them about how they get there. You'll learn a lot, and then it leads you to something else. Never a one and done. Never. It's often never a one and done. So like it leads you to something else.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think, in addition to ERGs, they are such great built-in communities. So it's great to tap into them. And if there aren't the communities that identify with you and your identity, like that's a great place to lean in and be the leader, because oftentimes companies will support you in creating one aligned to a passion of yours. So take that opportunity to lead in your own organization. The other things I'd offer, I think oftentimes mentorship, the formality of it can feel really intimidating, but I've personally found, rather than a single formal mentor program, just having a variety of colleagues, leaders that I could reach out to for advice or questions, almost like a board of advisors, if you've heard that concept. I found that to be much more valuable for me. So don't feel like it has to be formal to know that you're getting the advice and support that you might be looking for.
I'm gonna ask kind of a follow up to that, because I'm thinking about one of the last internships I had before I started my job at All In Together. They organized these like coffee with the CEO conversations for all the interns, and it was one of the most intimidating experiences for like every intern in the program. And so, how do you suggest people who might be a little nervous, maybe a little more introverted, how should people go about approaching these conversations or making that kind of cold ask to people that they're not as comfortable with? 'Cause Nancy, you mentioned like reaching out to senior leadership. How do you do that if you're maybe not as comfortable?
So two things like, uh, and I think, I forget, I was talking with you, I forget it was you or Shana, we were talking, and I said, we were talking about, if you're not uncomfortable, you're not learning. So it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to feel that uncomfortable and reach out and do that. When you're in the scenario where you said we had the CEO with the coffee, it's intimidating. Yeah, it's intimidating, but I can guarantee you that as a senior leader of an organization, when I meet people who are just starting out in the career, I have no expectation of like deep technical knowledge. And we have a strong desire to help you grow and learn career. So there's really no question we won't answer. So if you're thinking of anything, just be brave enough, find that purchase in you to ask the question. We really just find the courage. It doesn't matter what it is. We want questions, and and you will find once one person asks a question, it's like the icebreaker. It opens. So there's no judgment, and I can tell you because we do a lot of serve with like people early in their career, and we do a lot of those things. So again, there's no expectation that we're there like how are you going to solve our biggest problems in the company? No, we're not going to, that's not what it is. We're here to help you learn to grow because we've been there. So just understanding that. And I think any way that we can have these kind of talks to help and pass that along, I think is helpful.
Yeah, I would just add that leaders are people too. Like they want to connect with you just as much as you maybe are desiring to connect with them. So just start at a human place, get really curious, and honestly, like the bold question that you're thinking is probably on someone else's mind. You're probably speaking on behalf of a larger group of colleagues. So don't feel afraid, lean in and ask the question, and most likely they're going to be really impressed and like value your courage.
And that's a great point. I mean, honestly, all of you, think about when you're in a meeting, somebody asks a question, you're like, oh, that question, I should have asked it. I know you all have had that moment, right? So be that person to ask the question. Really, it's true.
And that's really great. And I think this, like the curiosity angle almost is even easier sometimes. And I think being like, I want to learn from you, I want to do this, and being really assertive in that way. And so going back to this kind of sense of belonging and making workplaces more inclusive, right? Both of you manage teams. Obviously, Lacey, you set culture at Wiley. So what are some steps that you're taking? Both of you, Nancy, I know you mentor a lot of people. What are some steps that you've taken at your jobs and in your workplaces to make your teams and the company culture just more inclusive and more opening and welcoming?
Yeah, it's hard. We're a global company, right? So I have staff all over the world. So it's really hard to sometimes to generate that belonging, right? So there are simple things we can do and harder. We try to do globally, when anybody has like a birthday or a significant event, we're always like acknowledging that in sub-public. When I do town halls, and I do them every month, a lot of town halls, I'm sure you've been to some of them when they're bigger with senior leaders, they're one way where it's like a Teams Live. You can't interact with the speaker unless you're in the room. So I always do mine just a regular Teams meeting, and I encourage the open forum discussion. And it's amazing. I have almost 100% participation every month. And it's a very lively discussion. It's a great way. Just everybody belongs. Everybody has a voice. We're here to solve these problems together, right? So let's talk about them. So it's really about maybe just changing little things in your day to day to ensure that inclusivity of everybody with the team, being aware of your team. You may have somebody that is working remote that may feel that they're not as present or not necessarily present. That's not the right word. They have the same ability to talk in a meeting of somebody that's in the office. I hear often it's difficult when you're so making sure you're cognizant of that and reaching out and trying to make sure that are heard.
Yeah, those are all great. And I think things that you can add, I mean, from day one, having like an onboarding buddy, it's a small thing, but I do think that beginning experience with an organization really does open the doors to so many other connections. Also, I'll speak to a lot of the work that Alessandra we heard from earlier, or we're giving kudos for this event earlier. She has been incredible in building out 10 the ERGs for our organization, building a new one for parents and caregivers, which is exciting for me personally. But also we have what we call community ambassadors. So these are people in each of our global offices that are really responsible for creating that sense of belonging, being that champion for culture locally. And then we're actually piloting and expanding what we're calling remote community ambassadors. So we have pockets of remote colleagues that even though they don't have an office to go to, they're close enough to each other that they can get together and have a shared experience. And I think that's been really, really positive. The other thing, I guess a plug for Wiley, but one of our products is actually the DISC assessment suite. And as colleagues, we get to use that for ourselves. So it's a simple kind of personality workplace style assessment that helps you think about, your ways of working. And so we use that all the time in our meetings and in new projects to help people come from a starting place of understanding each other. And I think that really helps the work not only be better, but again, them just feel like they're sharing a little bit about who they are to get the work on.
So I think I only have one more question for both of you before we turn it over to audience Q&A. And there's a mic right up there. So if folks are comfortable, get up and get behind the mic to ask whatever questions you might have. And really we're kind of, this last question is reflecting it back on the audience, right? How do you think that young people are shaping the workplace? And because I think one thing I notice a lot among my own peers is people are really thinking about how to make impact, not only at work, but taking what they do at work and then using it to make impact outside of work. So what's your advice for people who want to do that? And maybe, I'm a part-time grad student. We've been talking a lot about this week about like skills-based volunteering and programs like that. And like some people do that through their jobs. And so what's the advice you have for folks that might want to look more into programs like that in their own workplaces?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things that come to mind. So leading internally is great practice for leading externally. And so whether that's signing up and taking advantage of a manager or leadership program, or actually stepping in to lead an ERG or an office committee, like those things are leadership in practice that you can absolutely apply externally and kind of take to your passion area. So I think that's a place to start. Um, I also think that, companies like Wiley, for example, they'll match your volunteer hours or often have programs to support time off of work for volunteering. So just making sure you're tapping into those resources, and even companies will kind of add match and a donation contribution you might be making. So there's, I think, a lot of simple, practical ways you can do that. But ultimately, you know, I think Lauren said, believe in yourself and support others is really what we want people here to come away with. And I think if you can believe in yourself in whatever team you're on and lean into that, then we're going to make an impact where you go. And people are going to see that and are going to want to follow you. So lean into that.
That was very well said. Yeah, and I would second that. And first of all, like see like especially the next generation coming into the workforce is very impressive. A very civic minded. And I'm always impressed by people who have that balance. So a lot of what Lauren said, and each company has their own flavor. I know at Fiserv, we have many programs that you could take leadership in, whether it's an ERG, a program. We do a lot with veterans. We strongly about point, if there's something that you don't see that you feel passionate about, raise it. Most companies will want to say, yeah, that's a great idea, and then support you, and you can build that, and it's a great experience. So
Emily, we may have some questions in the chat. No? Okay. Well, do we have any questions for our panelists from the audience? Otherwise, I'm happy to try to make some more questions up, but I'm yeah.
Hello, can you hear me? Hi, thank you so much for both of you and all of you for speaking today and also a chance to be here. My name is Michelle. I'm an event specialist at Comcast Advertising. And my question was more so, for your respective companies, what does it mean to be a good citizen, quote unquote, of your company? Someone that's usually tapped on, someone that is a good representative, or just someone that who can really speak on your company and is a good role model for others.
that's a really good question.
Yeah.
So I get like so you're saying like as like a representative, what makes you a good representative of your company when you say good citizen?
Yeah, I'm thinking about especially, within my own company and those I witnessed, there are so many different places where you can be part of an ERG or you can lead an activity within your company. For instance, at Comcast Advertising, we have this thing called Knowledge Fest, where it's, 24 hours where representatives talk about their field. And there's kinds of extracurriculars almost per se, where you get tapped to speak about your field and as part of the company. So anything like that where, you're advocating for the work.
Yeah, I think most companies do, quite honestly, and they have their own culture on it. So you may have the knocks on like fintech. So we have like hackathons, kind of things that bring people together. From a culture perspective, we support the diversity, and I think that's really important. And we leaned into it, even all the changes with DEI level. Um, so we really support that concept, and we really support people to bring that into the workplace that allows us then organization. I think very similar for most companies. If I have to be honest, it's just really the spin of their culture on it.
Yeah, I think also if I'm thinking about kind of how we define a good citizen, there's a couple things. One would be like alignment and modeling of our values. So I think, and as you think about your own work and where you want to be, making sure your values align to a company's values is just so critical because it'll make you be able to go further. And if you're living your values and the company sees that, they're going to be, like you said, more likely to tap you on your shoulder to get involved or help be the face of something, right? So that's one thing. But I think the other is just like that curiosity, right? Like if you're somebody that's consistently leaning in and asking questions, pushing people to think differently, willing to jump in to help a team that's in need, like not think like thinking beyond your role about the impact you can make. I think that to me is what makes a really good colleague.
Yeah, I agree. Like we have a new CEO, right? And he just started time in May, and I love the culture he's bringing to our company. To go along with that, be there for, show up for your coworker, show up for the person that we're all trying to make the company successful. We're all trying to be there. So when it comes to you and asks you, say, I got it, right? Just trying to be successful for the same reason as objective.
And it could be a great opportunity to ask them, how did they get there? How did they get picked? And they might have the introduction to get you the right conversation to open that up for you.
Can I throw that question back at you? You know,
Which question?
you know how you two kind of got chosen for in terms of like speaking here and just other opportunities that you might have spoken at. Yeah, just like you know, getting tapped for things like this or other.
So I've been with Fiserv just a little over 4 years, and it was a big change for me in my career. The vice president at an insurance company, so moving to an SVP role in a fintech is very different because it's different being in an IT department in an insurance company versus a company that everybody's. So the dynamic is very different. And stepping into this role, you quickly realize that you're not the person looking at everybody, because I don't think of myself as that person, right? I don't think of myself. So when the company started approaching, hey, we want you to speak, it was very difficult because I'm clearly not a public speaker, as you can tell. I'm like, but that's okay. So just being able to do it and recognizing that, especially for me, women in tech is not as prevalent. So I felt a personal responsibility. Once people started asking me to then, maybe I have something to say, maybe I could. One thing that I say could help one person is then worth it, right? Even though it's sometimes very uncomfortable speaking public, but in the end, it's a lot of fun. I love meeting with people and answering the questions.
Yeah, I think honestly, I've had really good people in my life and in my career that saw something, saw a spark or a potential, and kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone. And there were like little pushes throughout my career of, hey, I think you could do this, go to this project, or I think you could take up this role. And even though I didn't see myself as being that person, like they supported me and asked a lot of questions. I, did a lot of work. Like I really leaned in and did the research and, to take on the new role. But I think having really good people around me has been a really big help. I also think for me, I would like to attribute it to like living in alignment with my values. Like I said, I truly believe that like work is such a huge part of people's lives. And if you make work a little bit better, you're impacting lives. So like I think by living in alignment with that, again, maybe that's just something that people see and then you get tapped.
Thank you.
We're in the back also. I saw a hand come up. Feel free to just walk up to the mic and ask also.
Okay.
Hey, ladies. I've spoken to a lot of organizations, spoken to a lot of women, and one of the questions I always get from them is, they get a lot of mentoring, which is great, but how do they reach out to someone to sponsor them to get into those spaces, right? To the next level. Would love to just hear from your insights.
Oh, that's a good question. Because I've been in the workforce over 30 years. So I've gone through formal mentor programs where they assign you a coach, assign you a mentor. It's hit or miss with those because coaching and mentoring is very personal. You actually have to have a connection with that person. My most successful mentorships have been people that I've sought out or that I have just encountered, just talking through maybe at the coffee station. I'm like, wow, or I've seen them speak and something they said resonated. And then I would approach them and say, hey, I saw you here. Would you mind if we talk about it? And then there just tended to be more of a personal connection, and then it just had a more value add position. Um, then I've had people that I didn't expect. I've just met outside of work, and we again connected, and they became someone that became a coach or a mentor that had nothing to do with my job. Right. So I think it's a great question, and for me, my experience has been my best mentors and coaches have come from places of where personal connection in and outside the work, and don't be afraid to ask, especially if you feel or approach. um, I'm not saying that those formal programs aren't good. I learned a lot in those programs, but it's unless it's, and again, this is me personally, I have to have that personal connection with someone to make it meaningful. So keep looking, you will find them. Be somebody in this room tonight,
Yeah, I think two things is that I think find a leader that you admire. There's two ways to learn from leadership, what not to do and what you'd like to do. And I find it's much more inspiring to be like around somebody that's really leading in a way you want to see yourself someday. And then in terms of how to ask them, I think one piece of advice that always resonated with me is this concept that you already have the no, meaning if you don't ask them or you do ask them, the worst case scenario is they're going to say no and you're right where you are today. But if you ask, the chances are people feel honored to be able to share their experience. They like to share their stories. And so, more often than not, I think you're going to find people saying yes. Um, and yeah, I think so. Just again, it's kind of being willing to take that step and the little bit of push outside of your comfort zone.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for late bloomers? I'm 29 and I'm just starting in my field of literary work, in the librarian work.
Yeah, for in terms of coming from a different place in your career, I think that again, like finding somebody you admire, learning about their career, having that initial conversation, they often can give you great advice of who to connect with next. I find like one relationship often leads to next. So that conversation can be great. And then I think also think about transferable skills. I think it's career journeys have changed a lot. It doesn't always have to be a single path. And so rather than seeing it and even framing it as a late bloomer, more so being able to say, this is what I've learned in my career and done so far, and this is where I want to take it next. There's a lot, I'm sure, from what you've done before that can apply to where you want to go next.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And, I talk I'm a mother of 5, and I talk to a lot of women who have worked and stayed home where I worked throughout with raising the children. And then they're trying to get back in the workforce and they're like, I don't have any skills. And I'm like, oh, right. You are a dispute negotiator, right? You are like, there's a lot of things that they do on a day to day that you can bring into the workforce. And I think looking at that and um, clearly you have skill because you got the job. So build on that. And then when you're in the workforce, be curious. Um, don't look at just what you do, look around you, talk to people, find out about, what other groups do. And you end up finding then cross purpose and then maybe an enriched experience through that conversation. So being curious is really important, I think, for somebody who's coming back into the workforce or just starting out in the workforce. Good luck. That's
Thank
wonderful.
you.
Have one question from the live stream asking, can you give some tips on how to be focused at what you do? So focus.
That's really hard, especially in my field, because it's, and I think technology makes that hard because you have email, you have Teams, you have like your phone like attached. What I do, and everybody has their own methodology. What I do is I don't look at my email when I first come in. If you look at your email when you first come into work, then what's ever in your inbox has set your agenda for the day. So I usually think about, as I'm driving to work, what are the 3 things? I don't make a big list because look, let's face it, you're not going to get 10 things done. You'd be lucky, right? What are the top 3 things I need to get done today? And then I set those in motion. And once I have those set in motion, then I'll go to my inbox. Don't let others set your agenda. You have an objective, you have a strategy, you have a way to go forward. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I would add, the only thing that I would add to that is this concept of like eating the frog. So if you can start with the thing in your day that you've been avoiding, that's hardest, like that's going to make the rest of your day go better. So eat the frog.
I never heard that term, but that's actually, that's a good one.
So I'm gonna throw in a quick one that there's a couple of different apps out there. I use one that's called Forest that will like brick your phone for you, and you can use it on your computer too. So I feel like that's also a really good way when I'm trying not to like distract myself. It's just like completely shut all my notifications off and keep myself from actually trying to use my apps. But I do think we have time for one more audience question if we've got one.
Hi, my name is Nadia, and thank you guys for being here. And my question is, how did you guys define success early on in your career? And how has that perspective changed, or how has that definition for you changed throughout the course of your career so far?
That's a really good question. I guess early in my career, I would say it was easy survival. Like I said, when I started out earnestly in my career, I had 5 young children between the ages of 5 months and 7 years. And I was fortunate enough to find a company that not only I fit their need, they fit my need. So this was before flexible work. There was no VPN. They wanted me in the office. So it was a negotiation of like 2 days a week. And then as my kids grew, I grew with the company, which was great. So for me back then, just that was success, right? Like just getting to work, having, just making it through. Then I got proficient, then I got promoted to manager. And then my career really started blossoming. And for me, it was about success is really going back to what I said earlier, the value that we bring. What value do I bring to the company? It's not worth it to me to come and just do a job and go home. I need to feel that I bring a value. I've changed. I've helped people. I've brought a team together. I've delivered something that matters, right? And that is success to me.
Yeah, I think in transparency, as the first one in my family to go to college or be in corporate career path, that was the first part of success, was just check that off. But I think there was a true element of, financial stability and security. And so putting in the work and feeling like I could show and prove my value so that I could get the promotion, like that was definitely part of how I defined success early in my career. But the other part of it, I think, was also just learning and growing. Like I love a good challenge. I love to like expand my, what I know. And so I think being able to get on different projects like was definitely part of success for me. Now, like where I am today, I have a 1-year-old. I have felt like I've established some sense of stability, security in my life. And so for me now, it's more about balance and finding how can I fulfill on the purpose at work that I'm obviously passionate about, but right now priority number 1 is my son. So success is finding that balance, leaning into my team more. Honestly, it's shifted my perspective and leading and really empowering them to do the work and for their growth versus it being growth. So yeah, it's a journey I'm honestly still on. Working motherhood is no joke, but I appreciate the question.
Hannah, can we give our panelists one more round of applause? And I'm also going to be introducing our keynote speaker for tonight. Sheena Yap Chan is a Wall Street Journal and Publishers Weekly bestselling author. You will find her newest book in your in the tote bags at your seats. It's called Bridging the Confidence Gap, and she will be talking a little bit more about that, about how to promote yourself at work and in life with confidence. And Sheena, would you like to come up?
Thank you, Priya. Good evening, everyone. How's everyone enjoying the event so far? First off, I just want to thank Lauren and the All In Together crew for having me as a speaker. It's truly an honor. I know she asked if anyone crossed the river. I actually crossed the border, so I don't know. I live in Toronto, Canada, and I know there was one lady who mentioned, she's starting her career at 29. I want you to realize you're not late at all. When Wiley approached me to write my first book, The Tao of Self-Confidence, I wrote that book at the age of 40. So it's never too late. And I just want you to know that it's never too late and you can start at any given moment. My latest book, like Priya mentioned, it is in the bag, Bridging the Confidence Gap. And one of the reasons why I wrote that was because there was a report from the World Economic Forum that mentioned that total gender parity would be achieved at the earliest. Can anyone guess? What? In the year 2154. Yeah, 2154. And unfortunately, that's when I wrote the book, which was last summer. Today, it's delayed 4 more years. So in the year 2158. So when you think about it, we're not going to see it. Your daughters won't see it. Your granddaughters won't see it. Your great granddaughters won't see it. Hopefully, we're lucky enough that our great great granddaughters will see it. But I don't think anybody wants to wait that long. Do we? I definitely don't. So this is why today's topic, I'm going to talk about 5 bold ways to promote yourself with confidence. Now, who loves to promote themselves? Yeah, I like that. Actually, I'm surprised. Self-promotion is something that I'm still very uncomfortable with, but I understand it's so important when it comes to leadership and speaking up and showing up. It's important to start with ourselves. And I know sometimes it can be very uncomfortable, and we've been told that it's not, ladylike, but who decided that, right? And I want you to use self-promotion as a tool to go out there and do the things that you're meant to do. All the things that I've done wouldn't have happened if I didn't put myself out there. And it's really scary, right? We're afraid of rejection. I tend to overthink everything. I don't know if I'm the person to do it. In fact, the first time I decided to promote something, I'm going to share this with you so you understand that you just have to start, no matter what stage you're in. I remember I did my first blog post, and I was really scared to share it on social media. And I finally pressed post on Facebook. But nobody knew that I actually set the audience settings to myself. So I just promoted it to myself. But I had to start somewhere, and we all have to start somewhere and take these small steps to get the big results, right? And so I wanted to share that to show you that you don't have to get it right the first time. You just got to do it and just keep doing it. And the best part is you're not alone. We're all here together. The organization's called All In Together. Who's all in? Nice. All right, so let's start. So most women are taught to be humble, quiet, and invisible. I know that because I come from an Asian household, and we've always been taught to never make any noise, stay in the background, do as you're told, be the perfect mother, daughter, wife, sister, whatever, right? Like perfection was like ingrained in our heads, and because of that, it was hard to speak up or to show up. And it took a lot of unlearning on my end to learn new things, to learn different things. And I'm gonna have my little cheat sheet because I did not bring my glasses, but staying silent doesn't serve us. Playing small doesn't help anyone. In fact, the first line on my latest book, I don't have a word for word, but basically one of my mentors was like, are you still gonna be mediocre or are you ready to play big? And I'm like, oh my goodness, and that's a big question, right? I thought I was doing a lot, but realized I'm still playing small. And in order to create the big changes that we want, we have to go out there and play big, right? Especially since now gender parity they're saying is not gonna be achieved until the year 2158. Like that's 133 years from now. And I don't, like I mentioned, nobody wants to wait that long. So today we're gonna flip the script. You'll walk away with 5 bold strategies to speak up, show up, promote yourself without apology. So who's ready? Nice. All right, the first one is own your story and tell it powerfully. Your story is your strength, not your weakness. You know, I talk to so many women that tell me that their story doesn't matter. No one's gonna listen to their story. And I want to tell you that your story does matter. Each and every one of your stories. You don't understand, your story could help someone out there, right? Our stories is a superpower, right? You know, you've the hard things you've overcome, the path that got you here, that's not baggage, that's proof. And especially as women, we've gone through a lot, right? Especially if you're a mother, you know, you had to do things in order to, you know, thrive, survive, you know, run a household, and that's not easy, right? Like Lauren mentioned, or I think one of the ladies mentioned, being the mother is the hardest job in the world and the most underpaid job, right? Who agrees? Yeah. So when you tell your story powerfully, you connect, inspire, and lead. And here's something that I want to share with you. If you don't own your story, someone else will, and they won't tell it right. So here's an action tip that I want to give to you. You write a 2-sentence story that includes your struggle and your strength. So here's an example. For years, I stayed quiet in rooms when I had every right to speak, afraid of being seen as too much. Now I use my voice to help other women stop shrinking and start owning their power. Very simple, but very powerful. We've all gone through a struggle and we've been able to overcome it, right? Who's been able to do that? Almost all of us, right? We probably went through like 10 struggles in a day and still overcame it. So each and every one of those can really help. And it doesn't matter if you think it's a small story. Those are the most powerful ones because that's something that everyday people can relate to. So I want you to own your story. And I'm sure you have a ton of stories that you can share. You can even have a notebook and just have bullet points of stories so that you can utilize it in your careers. Speak up even when your voice shakes. Confidence isn't about being fearless. It's about showing up scared and speaking anyways. You know, that's what being fearless really is. You know, it's about feeling that fear and doing it anyway. And I know it can be scared. I still get scared. Even coming up on stage, I still get anxiety. I'm like, oh my God, what if I fumble? What if I fall off on the stage? What if people think I'm, you know, what I'm talking about doesn't make sense? And then I also found out that Bono of all people, still gets scared before he goes on stage. But he utilizes that fear to give the best performance of his life. So every time you speak up, you build the muscle. You teach yourself that your voice matters and others will start to believe in it too. Don't wait to feel 100% ready. In the book, I talk about a strategy called ready, fire, aim. So you start before you're ready, take action, course correct as you go. And that's the motto that I've been doing, which led me to writing not one but 2 books with the publisher. You know, I just went for it. I never took any writing classes. I didn't even know if I could write one, let alone 2 books, but I made it happen, right? I just took ready, fire, aim, and just kept doing it until I got to that destination. And when you do it in that way, just imagine what you can achieve. And here's a secret. Men do it all the time, right? And that's how they get results. You know, every man I ask, like, what did you do? It's always 3 words, I don't know. But, you know, I give them credit because they're willing to do it. And I know it's easier said than done. As women, we go through a lot of biases, a lot of cultural upbringing where we've been told to make sure everything's perfect, don't make any mistakes, or we get reprimanded for making one small mistake. But, you know, making mistakes is part of it, right? And especially if you're someone who's in the business of solving problems, it's important to go through these problems so you understand what these problems are, how to fix it, how to go through it, and teach others the same way. So who's gonna start going ready, fire, aim today? Nice. We get confident by taking action. So here's an action tip. Pick one room, virtual or real, where your voice has been quiet. Say something this week. Your voice is your power. Use it. Even if it's just raising your hand up in a business meeting, just do it. Like one of the ladies mentioned, I've spoken to a lot of girls too where they were so afraid to put their hand up because they were afraid that their idea might be stupid. Meanwhile, the person beside them said the same exact idea and they were praised for it. So there's no such thing as a stupid idea. Raise your hand up, just share it. It's better to share it and not get the result that you want than to regret it, right? I don't want anyone to live life full of regrets. Life is so short. I want you to be able to say, you know what, at least I did it and I didn't die. So speak up. Share your work without feeling like you're bragging. So I get this a lot, right? You're not, and I want you to realize you're not bragging, you're owning your value. If you don't talk about what you've done, no one will know, right? No one's gonna know what you do if you're not the first person who shares it. And so it's important to share it out, to tell people what you've been able to achieve. So self-promotion isn't ego, it's visibility, it's leadership. So I want you to document it, share it, because you've earned it. So the action tip is post, share, or speak about one thing you've accomplished this week, big or small, and let people know. And don't worry, some of the things that I've shared that was a big win for me was back in the lockdown, when we were all on Zoom, one of the things I had to figure out was putting a virtual background on my computer. Because back then, I had an older version of my Mac, so I had to go buy a green screen to get the virtual, yeah, it was ghetto. So I'm trying to figure this out. I'm trying to set up my green screen and then I'm like, okay, let's see if this will work. For some odd reason, the virtual background landed on my t-shirt instead of the actual green screen. I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be a hot mess. They're just gonna look at my shirt and be like, what's going on there? And then I pressed a couple of buttons and it worked. And I was so happy like I won the lottery. So that for me, that was a big win because I was like, yes, I can figure this out. I'm not that, I'm not that non-techie. So I want you to share it. You can share it to the person next to you. You can share it in a group. You can share it after this presentation. Build a circle that boosts your confidence, not drains it. You don't rise alone. And I think this is so important. As women, we want to be the superwoman of everything, right? And it's exhausting, right? Who agrees? Like doing everything. Yeah, it's exhausting. Men don't do that. They outsource everything. Even a virtual background, they're like, yeah, I'll pay someone to do it. I mean, I love Canva, right? I'll do a lot of things with Canva. But even something as simple as that, they outsource. But I'm sharing this because it's really important to belong to a community where women can lift you up and men too that can lift you up, be allies, walk through this journey together, not in front or not behind, because it just makes the journey a lot less lonely. And it can get super lonely at times. So the people around you matter. Find those who cheer for you, challenge you, and remind you who you are when you forget. And here's a stat. Over 80% of women leaders say their networks help them advance. 80%. So don't be afraid to ask, right? Don't be afraid to ask like, "Hey, I would love to know what do I need to do to get to that next promotion?" Right? Or what do I need to do to figure out how to get a sale for my business? Once you can reach out, you'd be surprised how many people might help you out and give back. So choose people who energize you, not deplete you. So here's a tip today. So I know this can be a little bit scary, but reach out to 3 women this week, celebrate them, collaborate, ask what they need, and share what you do. So it could be the women in your table at this event or even outside of this event. Take up space with presence and purpose. You don't need permission to be here, right? It's okay to show up, it's okay to speak up. And part of the reasons why I promote myself, I put myself out there is to help other women realize that it's okay. It's okay to share what you've achieved. It's okay to, say I've written a book, it made it on the Wall Street Journal best-selling list. Here's a testimonial. I share everything, right? And I know a lot of people are like, well, how do you know what it's too much? I'm like, I don't know. For me, I don't know. I just do it because it's bigger than myself. So confidence isn't just what you say, it's how you walk into the room, how you carry your name, how you hold your ground. Stop shrinking, start showing up. You belong in every room you walk into, and if not, build your own. So here's an action tip. I want you to practice your power intro. And this is the template. So hi, I'm your name and I help people and just have an impact statement. And you can write it down, share it to somebody, and say, here's an example. Hi, I'm Sheena and I help women grow their confidence and visibility so they can get the recognition, opportunities, and leadership roles they deserve. So I'm just gonna get a glass of water. But I hope that helps out. So here's a recap. Own your story and tell it powerfully. Speak up even when your voice shakes. Share your work without apology. Build a circle that lifts you higher. Take up space with purpose and pride. And a final reminder, confidence grows every time you show up, even if you're scared. So I hope some of these strategies will help you today. If you want, you can connect with me by scanning the barcode. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to come up on stage or to the podium. Thank you.
Hi, Sheena.
Hi.
I'm Devin.
Hi, Devin.
Brother of 4 females who are lovely. But something you said today, most everything you said today resonated, right? Because I have 4 sisters, and every time we get on the phone, it's usually a conversation. I'm like, how do I do this? How do I do that? And they're like, just do it. Um, and I didn't realize until about a year or 2 ago when we had a session here that it's not that easy for women to just show up and say, I'm going to do it. And I also then had to take stock of my own truth and realize it wasn't easy for me at first either, because I had to walk into a room and feel like, am I adequate enough to be asking the questions? And I remember I had a leader here who said to us once, even if she knows the answer, she doesn't outright say it. Sometimes she masquerades it by asking, well, this might be a stupid question, but, and she'll preface it that way. And it just shocked me to think that I wasn't the only one sometimes we're thinking that way. And I don't know where that comes from, if that's just I'm West Indies and I've come to a country that's not my, do I have the permission to ask those questions? So I do want to thank you for sharing that with the rest of the group. The question that I have for you is, how do you, or what advice would you give someone who is still trying to figure out how to advocate for themselves in a space that they don't feel they belong in or feel like they're an imposter in?
Yeah, that's a great question. First off, I think the most important thing is like remind yourself that you don't have to do this alone, right? There's communities, there's people out there who will help you get over that or learn to get over that. And also when it comes to imposter syndrome, I've learned to use it for something positive, right? When I'm going through moments of self doubt, feeling I'm not good enough, I realize, this is a sign that I'm growing. So when you're growing, it's not going to be rainbows and butterflies. It's going to be anxiety. It's going to be uncomfortable. So that's a sign that you're just taking it to the next level. And when you just see things from a different perspective, it won't be as scary and it won't be as bad. And sometimes you just need people to help you kind of like push you off the cliff because that's what happened to me, right? Before during the pandemic, I reached out to a lot of people, asking to be part of a co-authored book that I was, and it was scary, right? Some of them I've never met and be like, hey, do you want to be part of this book? But I had somebody who just put me on the spot and I just had to do it. I had to do it scared, right? But the more you keep doing it, the less scared you get. And I keep reminding myself, you know what? I didn't die, so it wasn't too bad. So I hope that helped. Anybody else?
Hi,
Hello.
thank you for sharing. And my name is Sandy. I work as a analyst at Fiserv actually. And I was wondering what advice would you give to someone who's trying to navigate in their career and make themselves known in a very male dominated industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, it's not always an easy answer, but I think just taking small, actionable daily steps, right? Maybe just having a one-on-one conversation with one person, getting to know them, and just kind of just taking it one step at a time. You don't have to take such a big leap because sometimes when we take big leaps, we don't get the result that we want, and then our confidence goes down even more. But maybe doing it small, you're just starting like maybe hanging out at lunchtime or having a coffee conversation outside the workplace. Those can be the small things you can do. Like I remember talking to a lady who also worked, who decided to reach out to her boss's boss to just have a coffee chat. And at first, she was happy, and then she got really scared because everyone was like, "Why would you do that? What if you screw up? I don't think you should do it." And so she was asking me like, "Do you think I should do it?" I'm like, "Yeah, you should because he already said yes, right? And if you turn him down, it'll look bad on you, right? And it's just 30 minutes of your time, right? It's like not, it's just a coffee chat. He gets to know who you are, what you do, and that can lead on to other things, right? But the fact that you already said it and then you're going to take it back, it looks bad on you. So I'm just glad she decided to do it, and she was really happy that she was able to do it. So yeah, just learn to take small steps when you do it. This the last question, and then yeah. Hi.
Hi, Gina.
Hi.
Chrissy, I work here at Wiley.
Nice to meet you.
You too. So, what advice would you give for someone like I'm sure we've all had this experience where you do speak up and you have a great idea and you get shot down and that affects your confidence. What advice do you have to bounce back from that?
Yeah, I mean, I think people don't realize like the people we see who are very successful had 1,000 bad ideas before they made it big, right? I love Hello Kitty, very big fan of it. But I also read a story how her idea got rejected 47 times by Sanrio executives before they even decided to put it on because they thought her idea was too plain and too childish. And then they said, okay, we'll try it. We'll try it. So they decided to come out with like a Hello Kitty coin purse. That was very basic. She didn't even have a mouth, right? And it took off. Like it was sold out. And today, Hello Kitty is an $80 billion global business. $80 billion of a cat with no mouth till this day. Like I was in San Francisco. I drove an hour to go to the Hello Kitty cafe. I went to Primark yesterday and bought this Hello Kitty phone case. Like, uh, like, like, yeah, I love Hello Kitty. So, and if you look at other successful people, like you look at J.K. Rowling, the most successful author that we probably know, right? But even her, she got rejected 50 times before someone yet said yes. So I bet you the other 49 publishers were probably kicking their heads right now, right? Look where Harry Potter is today. It's still everyone still loves Harry Potter. There's like theme parks in the US, in Japan, all because she never gave up. So, just because one person turns it down, it doesn't mean it's a bad idea, right? Maybe you just need to go back to the drawing board and figure another way out, right? Kind of like the ready, fire, aim. Just put it out there. If it didn't work, go back, kind of course correct it a little bit and ask again, right? Um, 9 out of 10 times we're going to get rejected, or I think 90% of the time, right? But that 10%, can make a huge impact in the world, right? We look at the light bulb, 10,000 ways for a light bulb not to work. But, look at today. Who owns a light bulb? Yeah. So I hope that helps you.
Thank you, Sheena.
Thank you, everyone.
That was so awesome. I have like a whole new appreciation for Hello Kitty now. I like really never thought that much about Hello Kitty. That's so amazing. Thank you all for staying. I just want to make a couple quick acknowledgments. This program absolutely would not have happened were it not, of course, for our hosts here at Wiley. And I want to particularly thank Maria Escobar, who absolutely, the beautiful flowers, the food, everything you see was her brainchild. She worked so hard. So thank you, Maria, for making it very easy for our team. And of course, to Danielle for hosting us. I also want to acknowledge our friends at Fiserv. And how many people are here from Fiserv? I think we have a good little team. It's awesome. This is the second year that Fiserv has been part of this. Please go back and tell your colleagues that you enjoyed it because we'd love you to do it a fourth year, but it was great and we love having you. And then, of course, our partners at P&G who've been amazing, amazing board members, part of All In Together community for almost a decade. Danielle, did you want to say something before we wrap?
Can I say a couple quick words?
Please.
All right. So I think I challenged you to figure out what is the nugget
Oh,
you're
the
gonna
nugget.
walk away with, and maybe try and do something new. I have a list of 10. I'm gonna share with you,
Wow.
but maybe these can help you with your thinking.
But you can only do 3 on the way to work, Nancy says. So
I'm generating ideas for
that's
you
a
of my
nugget for me.
favorites, okay? So the first was the top 3 things you can get done today. Don't let others set your agenda.
That was so good.
That was so good. Eat the frog. I love that. When Lacey said that, I was like, oh, she always says that. Living your, I saved the frog. I don't know about you guys. Living your values, getting involved. Are you going to be mediocre or do you want to be extraordinary? Own your value. Never stop learning. That's a little bit of a wily one, by the way. Believe in yourself and support others. Get out of your comfort zone. Love that one. Owning the room. This concept of owning the room. I have a little tidbit that I use when I walk into a room, and I saw it on a TV show. It was a grandma talking. If someone can figure out the TV show, they get extra dessert. The grandma said to her teen daughter, "Shoulders back and chin up." And so when I walk in a room, I always think of that because it's the physical presence of walking in a room. So that's my little tidbit for you. Ready, fire, aim is probably my all-time favorite of the day. And Lacey on my team is laughing because that's kind of my MO. I feel like it should be my tagline. And then finally, you don't rise alone. So want to thank you all for being here, for participating, for all of the phenomenal questions and engagement. Want to invite you to join us for dessert. But before we do that, we do have one last little celebration. And we have a 50th birthday in the room for Lauren. So I thought that we might have a little
Oh my
birthday
God,
brownie.
that's the best thing ever.
Everyone could join me in celebrating Lauren. Thank you, Lauren,
Oh,
for all that you do.
That's so amazing. Wait.
Woohoo!
Oh my
All
God.
right. Thank you,
that's
everyone.
So amazing. So, I got to tell you, like 50, 29, not too late. I mean, I'm still just figuring out what I want to be when I grow up, and I'm turning 50 this weekend. Thank you, Danielle. That's so, so lovely. I will be eating this, and I'm not sharing. That's also part of being 50. You're like, yeah, no, I'm eating the brownie. Anyway, thank you all so much for being here. Please stay, have drinks, hang out with each other, and stay in touch with us. Our next event is right across the river. We the Leaders, which is our big signature women's leadership program, is October 20th at the Ford Foundation. Tickets will be pretty limited, so if you are interested in joining, please stay connected to us through the socials and through our newsletter, which you will now be part of. But thank you all so, so much. Have a great night.